हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू यू ऑल टू योर चैनल विज्ञान घर। इस वीडियो में हम लोग लेके आ रहे हैं MSc एंट्रेंस जूलॉजी क्वेश्चन पेपर ऑफ BHU 2020 with explanation. So in this video we are going to discuss the first 40 questions of the question paper with detailed explanation. ठीक है, so I hope आपको हमारी वीडियोस पसंद आ रहे होंगे और आप लोग अच्छे से लाइक एंड शेयर भी कर रहे हैं। तो अगर आपने चैनल को अभी तक सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है सो प्लीज चैनल सब्सक्राइब करें सो दैट यू विल गेट द रेगुलर नोटिफिकेशन। ओके, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन ऑफ दिस। इन सिटू कंजर्वेशन कैन बी डन बाय। ठीक है, सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल व्हाट इज इन सिटू कंजर्वेशन? So the in situ conservation is a method of conservation in which the animals are allowed to conserve in their natural habitat. ठीक है, and they have the more mobility available for them. ठीक है, so the best in situ conservation methods are the biosphere reserves, national parks, wildlife sanctuary, and the biodiversity hotspots. These all are the in situ conservation methods. ठीक है, so in this question the correct option is D. Next question is terracing and the contour binding assist in. ठीक है, so the contour binding is a proven sustainable land management practice for marginal, sloping and hilly land where the soil productivity is very low. ठीक है, and it consists of narrow burns on contours to impound runoff water behind them so that it can gradually infiltrate into the soil for the crop use. ठीक है, even while the terracing or the terrace forming alters the shape of the slope to produce flat areas that provide a catchment for the water. ठीक है, so we can say that these both terracing and the contour binding are the example of traditional low cost method of soil conservation. ठीक है, suitable for sloping land by promoting water retention and preventing the soil erosion. So in this question, the correct option would be option D. These both assist in the soil conservation. Third one is isinglass used for clearing the wine and vinegar is derived from. ठीक है, so isinglass, it is a gelatinous substance which is obtained from the dried swim bladder of the fishes. ठीक है, it is a form of the collagen which is used mainly for the clarification or fining of the somewhere and wine. It can also be cooked into a paste for specialized gluing purposes. ठीक है, so in this question the correct option would be A, option A. Next, the wheel organ is found in. It is very important question. So the wheel organ is found in the lancelet, which is also called the amphioxus or the branchiostoma, and it belongs to the cephalochordata. ठीक है, so lancelet, it is called the lancelet because its both ends are like the lancelet. ठीक है, so इसके जो दोनों sides होते हैं they are pointed structure. ठीक, and it belongs to the phylum cephalochordate क्योंकि इसमें जो आपके नोटोकॉर्ड होती है वो इसकी बॉडी के entire length में extend करती है, so that is why it belongs to the cephalochordata. ठीक है, so the wheel organ is a specialized epithelium in the roof and side of the adult lancelet. ठीक है, and it is used to draw the food through the use of its cilia for the digestion. ठीक है, so wheel organ is found in the lancelet. The correct option is D. Next question is Ranikhet disease occurs in. So this Ranikhet disease is also known as the Newcastle disease. It is a highly contagious viral disease that affects the birds including the domestic poultry. ठीक है, so the virus which causes this disease is the Paramyxovirus. ठीक है, and it varying pathogenicity from mild to the halopathogenic. ठीक है, And the spread of this disease is usually caused by the direct physical contact with infected or the diseased bird. And the virus may also be present in the manure and it's breathed out into the air. Okay? So the correct option in this, option D, that is poultry farming. Next, in a spectrophotometer, function of the monochromator is to. So a monochromator provides a wavelength selection option in microplate readers, spectrophotometers, and other measurement instruments. It enables the spectral isolation of a wavelength from the beam of a light source. Okay? So that means it is used to select a desired wavelength. Okay? So option D is correct. Next, threats to biodiversity are. Okay? So biodiversity is a term which is used to define all the flora and the fauna which is present in a given area. Okay? So it refers to all the species in one region of the ecosystem, including the plants, bacteria, animals, and humans. Okay? But there are several threats to the biodiversity as well, like the habitat destruction, alien invasive species, genetic pollution, overexploitation, hybridization, climate change, diseases. So these all are the threats to the biodiversity. Okay? So in the given option B would be correct. Okay. Next, match the following larval form. So we know that the larval form is a very important. हमेशा हर एग्जाम में larval form से कोई ना कोई क्वेश्चन जरूर आता है. ठीक है. So यहाँ पे जो भी सारे larval forms हैं, it belongs to the phylum Echinodermata. ठीक है. So Echinodermata phylum, they all are Echinodermata are Deuterostomes. ठीक है. And these are exclusively marine. In case of the echinoderms, the development may be direct or indirect. So if the development is indirect, it will include the different larval forms. Okay? So in the echinodermata, different classes have different larval forms. Like asteroida, जिसमें आपका asterias starfish आती है, it has the bipinnaria and brachylaria larval form. Ophiroidea, Ophiopluteus, Echinoidea, Echinopluteus, Holothroidea, Auricularia, Crinoidea, Doliolaria, and the Pentacrinoid. So the Echinodermata have 5 different classes, and these classes have different larval forms. So here we can see Echinopluteus larval form is present in the Echinoidea. Auricularia is present in the Holothroidea. Bipinnaria is Asteroidea. And Doliolaria is Crinoidea. Okay? So the right option would be A के लिए second. So there is only one option in which A and 2 pairs. Okay? So the option D would be correct for this question. Exchange of food between one insect and other is known as. Okay? So the Trophallaxis is the transfer of the food or other fluids among members of a community through mouth to mouth, which is called the stomodial, or anus to mouth, which is called the proctodial feeding. This type of transfer occurs among the organism in one species. It is the most highly developed in social insects such as the ants, termite, wasp, and bees. Okay? So the correct option is D. Next, which of the following is the source of estrogen and the progesterone during the last 7 months of pregnancy? Okay? So we know that during the first trimester of the pregnancy up to the 8th or the 10th week, the corpus luteum is the main source of the estrogen and the progesterone. But after the first trimester, the placenta will form and it is the main source of the estrogen and progesterone during the remaining tenure of the pregnancy. Okay? So for this question, option C would be correct. So during the first trimester, corpus luteum, and during the last 7 months, you can say it is the placenta. An 18-year-old male is brought to the emergency room by his friends after eating mushrooms. He is treated for mushroom poisoning. which one of the following sign is consistent with muscarinic poisoning? ठीक है. So muscarinic poison have different effects on the different organ system. ठीक है. So to remember the muscarinic effect on different organ system, we can use the different mnemonics. For example, sludge, and the other one is dumbbells. ठीक है. So sludge. S is salivation, lacrimation, urination, diarrhea, gastrointestinal upset, and emesis. ठीक है. Here diarrhea, urination, meiosis, bradycardia, ठीक है. Then आपका emesis, excessive lacrimation, and the salivation. ठीक है. So we can see among all these bradycardia option is available. So what is bradycardia? It is the slower than normal heart rate. ठीक है. So the heart rate is 72 times per minute normal. So if the heart rate is below 72 times per minute, it is called the bradycardia, while the another term is the tachycardia, in which the heart rate is higher than normal. It will be more than 72 times per minute. So in this question, the correct option would be B. Next, at what RPM, that is the revolutions per minute, the centrifuge must be said to have an REF, that is the it would be RCF, not REF, relative centrifugal force of 1 lakh G if an average R value is 4. ठीक है. So first of all, this relative centrifugal force, that is the RCF, is the force which acts on the sample during the centrifugation. ठीक है. So if we find out the RPM and RCF, so there is a formula that RCF is equal to RPM squared into 1.118 into 10 to the power minus 5 into R. ठीक है. So here we can see that RCF is equal to 10 to the power 5 RPM squared into 10 to the, and R value is 4. ठीक है. So from here RPM squared would be 10 to the power minus 10 to the power 5 into this. ठीक है. So ये 10 to the power 5 ऊपर चला जाएगा, तो ये हो जाएगा 10 to the power 10, और इसको जब हम कैलकुलेट करेंगे it will come 4.472. ठीक है. तो RPM कितना हो जाएगा? RPM is equal to square root 10 to the power 10 upon 4.472. ठीक है. तो ये हो जाएगा 10 to the power 5 and it is somewhere 2 point something. तो जब हम इसको कैलकुलेट करेंगे, so the value will come around 48,000. ठीक है. So the correct option would be C. So at 40,000 RPM, the centrifuge must be said to have an RCF of 1 lakh G if the average R value is 4. ठीक है. So correct option is C. Next, membrane blabbing, nuclear fragmentation. These are the features associated with. So these two features are associated with the apoptosis. ठीक है. So the blabbing is one of the defined feature of the apoptosis. During the apoptosis or the programmed cell death, the cell cytoskeleton breaks up and causes the membrane to bulge outward. These bulges may separate from the cell, taking a portion of the cytoplasm with them to become known as the apoptotic blabs. Similarly, during the apoptosis, the cleavage of the chromosomal DNA also takes place into the oligonucleosomal size fragments. ठीक है? And these two phenomena are the hallmark of the apoptosis. ठीक है? So the correct option would be C. Which organ is responsible for the development of the mature T cells? ठीक है? So we all know that the blood cell formation takes place in the bone marrow, but the maturation of the T cells takes place in the thymus. Okay? So the majority of the T cells may be of different type. So the majority of the cells in the thymus give rise to the alpha and the beta T cells. However, 5% bear the gamma and delta T cell receptor. So the correct option for this would be C. The maturation of the T cells takes place in the thymus. Which one of the following chemical is released by the pancreas when the blood sugar level falls? So we all know that pancreas is a mixed or the heterocrine gland because it has both the component exocrine and the endocrine. So the endocrine part of the pancreas is the islet of the Langerhans, which have alpha, beta and delta type of the cells. So alpha cells secrete the glucagon and beta cells secrete the insulin. These both hormones are antagonistic to each other. Okay, that means they have opposite function. So the function of the glucagon is to increase the glucose level in the blood, while the function of the insulin is to decrease the glucose level in the blood. ठीक है, तो हमारे क्वेश्चन में पूछा गया है which one of the following chemical which is released by the pancreas when the blood sugar level falls. ठीक है, so of course जब blood sugar level falls है, so the glucagon will be released because it has the function of to increase the glucose level. So the correct option is A. Next, sexually transmitted protozoans is. So trichomoniasis is a very common sexually transmitted disease which is caused by the infection with a protozoan parasite which is called the Trichomonas vaginalis. Okay? So the correct option is A, that is the Trichomonas vaginalis. Next question is, the immunoglobulin that can be transported across the placenta to confer immunity to the fetus in animals is. Okay? So the placental transfer of maternal IgG antibodies to the fetus is an important mechanism that provides protection to the infant. Okay? Because at this time in the fetus humoral immunity is inefficient. Okay? And IgG is the only antibody that can significantly crosses the placenta. So the correct option would be A, that is the IgG antibody. Next, the most important cell type associated with the acquired immunity of the body is. So the process of acquired or the adaptive immunity is the basis of vaccination. The cells that carry out the adaptive or the acquired immune response are white blood cells, especially lymphocytes. Okay? So the correct option is A. Next. The mutation rate of 10 to the power minus 5 to 10 to the power minus 6 means that the number of gametes carrying a newly mutated allele at any particular locus will be. Okay? So the mutation rate of 10 to the power minus 5 indicates that the mutated allele appears 1 in every 1 lakh gamete. Okay? Similarly, the mutation rate of 10 to the power minus 6 indicates that the mutated allele appear in every 10 lakh gamete. Okay? So the correct option would be D. Option D is correct. Next question. Following is the list of the respiratory chain enzyme cytochrome C, cytochrome oxidase, ATP synthase and succinate Q reductase. So identify the option which has the correct combination of enzyme forming a proton pumping complex. Okay? So we know that the respiratory chain which is present in the inner mitochondrial membrane has 4 different complexes. Complex 1, which is called the NADH dehydrogenase complex. Complex 2, which is called the succinate dehydrogenase complex. Complex 3, which is the cytochrome C, and the complex 4, which is the cytochrome C oxidase complex. Okay. Among these 4 complexes, only the complex 1, 3 and 4 can pump the proton and they form the proton pumping complex, while the complex 2 does not pump any proton. Okay. So the complex 1, 3 and 4 will form the proton pumping complex. अब यहाँ पे NADH dehydrogenase option नहीं है, which is the complex 1, but there are options for the complex 3 and complex 4, which are the cytochrome C and cytochrome oxidase. That means the option A and B are correct. So the option C would be correct. Option C is correct. Option is C. Okay, sorry, it was by mistake. So the correct option would be C, because option A and option B are correct. Next, by genetic engineering, organisms created that lack a specific gene are called as, so these are called the knockouts. Okay, a gene knockout, it is also written as like KO, is a genetic technique in which one of an organism's gene is made inactivated or inoperative by replacing it or disrupting it with an artificial piece of the DNA. These knockout organisms are used to study the gene function, usually by investigating the effect of gene loss. Okay? So the correct option would be B. Next, which one of the following factors will not have an effect on the sedimentation of a particle during centrifugation? Okay. So, in addition to the particle size, density, and the concentration and fluid viscosity, there are several other factors which may affect the sedimentation rate. These factors include the particle shape and orientation, convection current in the surrounding fluid, and the chemical pre-treatment of the feed suspension. Okay. So all these 3 factors are going to affect the sedimentation of particle, but the atmospheric pressure have no effect on the sedimentation of a particle during centrifugation. So the correct option would be B. Next, a pheromone is a chemical cue. Okay. So pheromones are chemical substances that are created and emitted by organisms and odorants, often as oil or the sweat, into the environment. Okay. These may influence the behavior or physiology of other members of their own species. Okay. So that means it is released externally by the animals to influence the behavior of conspecific. So the correct option is D. Okay. Next, structure-line Polian vesicles and the Tiedemann bodies can be used as identifying echinoderms. Okay. So we know that in case of the echinoderms or the echinodermatophyla, the water vascular system is present, which helps in their locomotion, feeding, and other functions. So the Polian vesicles, these are the bulbous cavities which maintain pressure in this system and hold reserve supplies of the food. Okay? While the Tiedemann bodies are present on the inner side of the ring canal. Okay? The function of these bodies is to produce these coelomic corpuscles which are released into the ring canal and ring canal of the system, which is known as the water vascular system. Okay? So the correct option is C. Complete base titration of the alpha amino acid aspartate will yield how many pK values? Okay? Because the aspartate has 3 proton exchange center. Okay? 1, 2 and 3. So it has 3 proton exchange center, so it can be represented by 3 pKa. So pKa1 is equal to 1.9, 2 is 9.6 and 3 is the 3.7. So the correct option would be D. Next, in G-banding, dark region of the chromosome represent. So chromosomes are visualized by using Giemsa staining or the G-banding. So during the Giemsa staining, two types of the bends appear, light bend and the dark bend. Okay? So light bends, these represent the early replicating region and they are rich in the G and C nucleotides. Okay? जबकि the dark bends represent the late replicating regions and they are rich in the adenine and thymine residues or the nucleotides. तो यहाँ पे हमसे पूछा है dark region, so this will be AT rich region. So option A is correct. Next, which one of the following explains involution, a type of cell movement during the gastrulation? ठीक है? So we know that the gastrulation is marked by the different types of the cellular movements, involution, invagination, epiboly, etc. Okay. So in evolution, what happens? There is interning of the cell sheet over the basal surface of an outer layer. Okay. So in this option, we can see that option D is correct. Inward movement of expanding outer layer so that it spreads over the internal surface of the remaining external cells. So option D is correct. Next, Lampbrush chromosomes are seen in certain organisms during. Okay. So we know that Lampbrush and the polytene chromosomes are two special types of the chromosome. So these Lampbrush chromosomes are found in the growing oocytes of the most animals except the mammals. So the chromosome transforms into the Lampbrush form during the diplotin stage of the meiotic prophase 1. ठीक है? So हम लोग को पता है कि जो meiosis 1 की prophase होती है वहाँ पे different stages होती है, lactotin, zygotin, pachytin, diplotin and the diakinesis. ठीक है? So it forms due to the inactive transcription of the many genes. Okay? So the correct option would be A, that is the diplotin stage. Which one of the following are the characteristic of the deuterostome? ठीक है? So first of all, जो deuterostomes होते हैं उसमें हमारे आते हैं phylum Echinoderm और Chordata. ठीक है? जबकि प्रोटोजोआ से लेके जो आपके मोलस्का तक एनिमल्स होते हैं वो सारे आते हैं प्रोटोस्टोम्स में. ठीक है? सो प्रोटोस्टोमिया एंड ड्यूटेरोस्टोमिया. सो इन केस ऑफ द प्रोटोस्टोमिया द क्लीवेज इज स्पाइरल एंड डिटर्मिनेट. ठीक है? और इनमें जो माउथ होता है इट अराइजेस फ्रॉम द ब्लास्टोपोर और इसमें जो सीलोम होती है इट इज द शाइजोसीलस. ठीक है? But in case of the deuterostome, which are represented by the Echinodermata and the Chordata, the cleavage is radial and indeterminate. Mouth arises some distance away from the blastopore, and the coelom is the enterocoelus. So the option C would be correct in this question. Next. Which one of the following can be considered as a territory? ठीक है? So in terms of the ecology, territory is any area which is defended by an organism or a group of similar organism for such purposes like mating, nesting, roosting or feeding. Possession of a territory involves aggressive behavior and thus contrasts with the home range, which is the area in which the animal normally lives. ठीक है? So the territory is an area which is exclusively occupied and defended by a single animal or a group. So the option C would be correct in this question. Next, blood glucose is generally maintained as a concentration of 4.5 to 5.5 millimolar per liter, but it may rise to 6.5 to 7.2 millimolar per liter after feeding or decrease to 3.23 to 3.9 millimolar per liter in the fasting state. Which enzymes plays the important role in regulating blood glucose level after feeding? ठीक है? So glucokinase is an enzyme which is responsible for the conversion of glucose into glucose 6-phosphate and plays a central role as a glucose sensor in the regulation of the glucose homeostasis. Okay? So for this question, option A would be correct, that is the glucokinase. Next, snakes are thought to have evolved from. So snakes are thought to have evolved from either burrowing or the aquatic lizards. Okay? During the Jurassic period, with the earliest known fossils dating to between 143 and 167 million years ago. Okay? The diversity of the modern snakes appeared during the Paleocene epoch. Okay? So the correct option would be C. Next, which one of the following option has all three correct matches? Okay? So the botryoidal tissues are found in the Hirudinea. ठीक है? So इसी से ही आप पता लगा सकते हो तो that option A is correct because there is no other option in which these two are matching. And we know that the flame cells are the excretory organ in case of the Trematoda, and the ospiradium is found in the molars in the gastropoda. Okay? So in this case the option A is correct. Next, which one of the following characteristic of an axon is most dependent on its diameter? So the duration of the refractory period is dependent on the diameter of an axon. Okay? So the large diameter axons have a larger surface area and will have a brief absolute refractory period which is about 0.4 millisecond, while the smaller diameter axons have absolute refractory period as long as 4 millisecond. Okay? So the correct option would be option D, that is the duration of its refractory period. In this question, some students get confused that the option may be conduction velocity of its action potential. Yeah, of course, the diameter of axon also affect the conduction velocity of an action potential, but this factor is most importantly dependent on the myelination or the unmyelination of the axon, but the duration of the refractory period is exclusively dependent on the diameter of the axon. So the most appropriate answer for this question would be option D. Next, infective inheritance is illustrated by. Okay? So infective inheritance, it is a non-Mendelian inheritance in which the infectious particle within the cell of the host may bring changes in the phenotype of the host organism and then pass on the altered phenotype to its offspring. It may include extranuclear inheritance, gene conversion, infectious heredity, etc. Okay? So in this case, these all are the example of the extra nuclear or the cytoplasmic inheritance. So in this question, option D would be correct. Next, the difference between the simple diffusion and facilitated transport is that facilitated transport, so here we can see in this diagram, the simple diffusion does not require any protein. It can occur through a membrane without any protein from a higher concentration toward the lower concentration, while for the facilitated diffusion, the transport requires the presence of the membrane proteins. Okay? So the facilitated transport requires membrane protein for the transport of the substances. So the option B would be correct. Next, leptin is a chemical which is released from the. So leptin is a hormone which is produced and released from the fat cells in the adipose tissue. The more body fat they carry, the more leptin they will produce. Then after release, this hormone will be carried by the bloodstream into the brain and it will send a signal to the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain which controls when and how much we should eat. ठीक है. This leptin hormone does not affect food intake from meal to meal, but instead it acts to alter food intake and control energy expenditure over the long term. So in this question, the correct answer would be D, that is the adipocytes or the fat cells. Okay. Now comes to the next question. The taxonomic level that is concerned with the characterization and naming of a species is known as. Okay. So basically there are three levels of the taxonomy: alpha, beta and gamma. Okay. So the alpha taxonomy, it is the level of the taxonomy by which species are characterized and naming of the species is done. So for this option, option B would be correct. Okay, but let's see beta taxonomy. It is the level of the taxonomy by which the arrangement of the species in their natural system of category is made. Okay. While the gamma taxonomy, it is the level of the taxonomy which deals with the intra-specific variations and evolutionary sequence, and also causal interpretation of the organic diversity. So for this question, option B would be correct. Next, which one of the following is associated with the structure of the Golgi complex? Okay. So Golgi complex have the cisternae. So for this, option A would be correct. So cisternae is a flattened membrane vesicle of the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus. Okay. So a Golgi apparatus may contain different number of the cisternae. Okay. While annuli is a ring or group of thick-walled cells around the sporangia of many ferns that function in spore release. Okay, so these are annuli. Quantasomes. Quantasomes are particles which are found in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast in which photosynthesis takes place. It is quantasomes. Okay. Now comes to the cristae. So we all know that cristae is a fold which is present in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. यहाँ पे respiratory जो electron transport chain होती है उसके complexes वगैरह present होते हैं और ATP synthesis वगैरह भी present होते हैं. ठीक है. So for this question, option A is correct. Next question. Which cellular organelles play an important role in the autophagy? So autophagy is a catabolic process in eukaryotic cells that delivers cytoplasmic components and organelles to the lysosome for digestion. Lysosomes are specialized organelles having required mixture of the enzymes essential to break down macromolecules which allow the cell to reuse the material. Okay? So the option would be lysosome. Lysosome play an important role in the autophagy. ठीक है. So I hope आपको questions अच्छे से समझ में आए होंगे with detailed explanation. अगर आपको कोई भी डाउट या आपकी कोई भी क्वेरी है तो आप हमें कमेंट सेक्शन में कमेंट कर सकते हैं या फिर आप हमें हमारी ईमेल आईडी vigyanghar@gmail.com पे ईमेल भी कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. अगर आपने चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है सो प्लीज सब्सक्राइब द चैनल और बेल आइकन प्रेस करना ना भूलें सो दैट यू विल गेट दी regular updates or the notifications about the related videos. Thanks for your love and support. प्लीज इसी तरह से वीडियोस देखते रहिए, लाइक कीजिए, शेयर कीजिए, सब्सक्राइब कीजिए. थैंक यू.